Good day, guys, and welcome to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time, please do not forget to like and subscribe. In the last video, the page object modeling was a bit lengthy because I had to pass a lot of information. So do not forget to listen to everything I've said. So what we need to understand about page object modeling here is that it helps you to write all your codes. It helps you to outline them line by line, just as you would have done here, but in a much neater and saner way. So which means you can still move through your codes line by line in a neater and saner way. Now, like I mentioned in the last video, if we are going to go by this, we will need at least 4 page object files. We will need that of the home page, we'll need that of the product listing page, we'll need that of the product detail page, we'll need that of the payment page, and where we're going to complete the order. So that's about 5 page object pages. But what if we can just do one? Bearing in mind that that one will still allow us to be able to test everything, move from one action to the other. It can allow us to do that. So that is how we're going to do this. So how do we get this done? I'd already taken the liberty to import the data element here, because what we'll do, essentially, let me just import again. You just, the same way we imported resources, you just do data element mapper, then you import all the classes inside it like we did in our index file here. So we import all the classes in our data element file, which is here. So what we need to do now is, like I mentioned, the concern here is we do not want to create a lot of page object files. We don't want that at all. We just want to use just one file and move ahead. So what do we need to do? We need to create a way where we can reuse all our methods, because we've been able to identify that we'll do a lot of clicks, we'll do a lot of inserting, we'll do a lot of waits, we'll do some waits, like wait for the presence of the element, or wait for the text, or wait for the element to be selected. We'll do all sorts of things like that, and at some point we'll verify a text. So what if we create reusable methods such that we can just pass in any argument? Take for instance, if you want to click a button, you just create a click method that can accept any element and click that element for you. Take for instance the over on main tab. What if we just pass an argument to over on any element? So which means instead of having main tab here, we can just have any element here. We can have an element here. So it looks for that element. So we can just call this maybe LA and just refactor it here too. Right? So it means it clicks on anything. So we don't have to have main tab here. We can just say mouse over. You can say Ctrl Z. Let me just refactor this. Let me right click on it and refactor it. So anyway it is. So we can call this mouse over element. So it means wherever it is, it will be refactored. So now it means that we can just pass in the value for this one, and what we want to just mouse over is we want to mouse over the main tab. So we can come here and we can go to home page. Since we've imported data elements, we can go to home page and say main tab, and if you try to run this, it will still over the main tab. Now let's just do the same thing for the main stop. So we can do mouse over element, home page again, main stop, and if we run this, expectedly it would work. Yes, it works. So what I'm saying in essence is that we can also now do the same thing for clicking. We can equally just have an element to click and say click element and put the element here to click. What I like to do is I like to actually put a wait function. I've already copied all the wait things that we called here, the action and the wait. So I've already put them here into our dunder method. So which means we can use the wait and we can use the action methods wherever we want to use them, just as we've been able to do here. So now I can call the weight method and say, probably let me just copy the weight here in index, one of the weights here. Let's see. Okay, so this is it. Wait for element to be located. Let's just call that in. And go in here and say self dot wait for element to be located, but instead of just using a specific element, we just call it element, right? So this way we can click an element, right? So we can just call this one click element. So with this done, we can also change this here to click element. And if we run this right now, it will still work as expected. Just as we thought. But on page.len is missing one required argument. Oh, we did not put the element there. So we put on page men's hoodie. That's what we want to click. So we run that. As you can see, if you don't put the actual argument on it, it will fail. So this has passed. So this has set it has set in motion for us a way to create all our methods. So we can create them so that it can be reusable. What am I saying here? So now, instead of even having this, waiting all this, we can also have a method that can wait for us. We can say if wait for presence, right? And while we're waiting for presence, all we just need to do is element. We need to wait for the presence of that element. So we can copy this and paste here. So instead of having to write it here again, all we just need to do is we just call self dot wait for presence, and we also add the element parameter into it because it needs the argument. Now that we've done this, we could also do the wait for selection, right? You can say wait for selection when we are waiting for the element to be selected. So you can say wait for selection where we are waiting for the elements to be selected. So the condition here will be element located to be selected. Then we can also wait for the text, right? Can't we? Of course we can wait for the text. So we can wait for, let's say, text presence. Now, in waiting for the text presence, what do we need to do? We need to change this one to element text to be present in element. Yes. So which means we would have not just the element, we will also have the text. So which means we'll have this. I think this is how this is done. We need one more here. Yes. So we have this, just like we've done here before, where we're waiting for text to be present in the element. We got this, and that was wrong, and that worked for us. So what else do we need? We can also verify a text. So we can verify a text. So let's just verify a text. And what do we need to do there? It means that we can first wait for the presence of that text. So we can say element, then we will have a message, right? So we can first wait. Let's wait for presence. So let's get the element. So once we found the element, we can now use this part to locate the element. It is important to note that your mode of selector must be consistent with the element you are trying to pass into it. If you are identifying it by an ID, you cannot pass the value of a CSS selector. if you are identifying it by a class, you can't pass the value of a CSS selector. So if you're, because I'm identifying mine, as you can see in my element mapper, everything is by CSS selector, so I can use the CSS selector like that. And if you are not, if the selector isn't consistent, you can also pass the selector as an argument. So which means when you get there, you just need to pass the selector type and the particular element. So we have this, and we find the element, but what we need from the element is its text. So we need to get the text. So let's assign this to something. Let's call this expected text equals this. So what we can just do is we can assert that the expected text is equal to the message. So that way we verify the text. Now, all these lines you're seeing means that if I put a doc string, just like I've put here, everything will be fine. So you can put a doc string at your own convenience. Then, having done this, we also did a selection where we selected something. So we can do a def select a value. Since we did that, so which means we'll get that element that has a select tag, and we'll insert a value for it. So which means that we can equally use the wait for presence first, like we wait for the presence of the element, and once we've waited for the presence of the element, we can find that element. So let's say let's just call it LA again, and let's say we find the element, right? So once we found the element, we can say select, we create a new variable called select equals select the elements that we want to get, and we can just say select by value, we insert the value that we need. Simple. So we've done that. Then lastly, I think we can also well, not lastly, we can fill in some details, like if we need to type, and we definitely need to type, so we can do details, right? This, and we'll need the field where we want to type into, field, and we'll need a text. Of course, we can first wait for the field. We can wait for, instead of elements, we'll have field here. So we'll wait for the presence of the field. Then we also now have to find that element. We find the element, that means the field. We'll find the field. Then when we find the field, what do? We type, we send key, sorry, that's that is Cypress. So we type into it, so we type the text that we need into it, and that will do that for us. Then in cases where we actually need to force the click, let's say we need to execute the JavaScript act, yeah, so we can do def dot execute action. So let's call it execute, let me call it execute click action, click action. Now, of course, I can wait for the presence of the element again. Yes. So I will need that element first. That's what it means. And when I wait for the presence of the element, I then can find that element, just like we did here. Then when I found the element, let me just copy the command again here, then I can execute it. So I'll just execute that here and say self without forgetting the constructor, and we put element here. And this will do every other action that we have done in our index file here. So I will stop the video here, and in the next video I will now use all those methods that we've created. We will use it in our code, right? We'll use it step by step and we'll run the code, and if it runs, that concludes the series for us. If you've gotten this far, thank you. Please